My name is Brianna, and this is Pippin the Science Dog, and we are here today to do some kitchen chemistry. So I have Pippin with me right now because there is a wasp in my house, and she thinks they are delicious, delicious snacks with wings, and we get stung by wasps. So in a few minutes, she's gonna go away because someone else go watch her for me. But right now, it's me and Pippin. So last couple weeks, we talked about also, I know she looks limp, but she's very sleepy and she is very happy like this. Don't worry. Um, last couple weeks, we have been doing some of our classic science venture science experiments. We did strawberry DNA extraction, we did elephant's toothpaste, and we talked about density last week. And I promised that we were going to be starting a new couple week, probably like 3-week series on a cooking topic. So, for the next 3 weeks, we are going to be doing a special on eggs. Why eggs? Okay, I am going to pass along the dog now because she is free to run amok. Goodbye, Pippin the Science Dog. Okay, sorry. Why eggs? Well, eggs are for a lot of reasons. I like eggs because they're cheap, high in vitamins, and good for me. Easy, good protein. There's also a lot of other reasons, including, but not limited to, they are used in a ton of recipes. They can be eaten for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and specifically very useful for dessert due to some different properties that they have, which we will be learning about over the next couple weeks. So, it will be all about eggs. So, got a lot of eggs for me. What is an egg? I'm going to try not to drop this egg in the ground. I'll be gesticulating with it for a while. What is an egg? Well, it comes from a chicken. A chicken lays it, or any kind of birds, or reptiles for that matter, often lay eggs. And it's just a different way for animals to reproduce. So again, lizards, or reptiles, bugs, lots of bugs lay eggs, birds, some sharks even lay eggs, or have kind of like egg sacs, what have you. This little egg, when fertilized, has all of the good nutrients and things that an embryo, a baby, something or other needs to grow and develop. So instead of growing inside of an animal, it grows outside. So basically think of this as like the little house that the chicken would grow inside. But because this egg has not been fertilized, it's just an egg, it doesn't have anything, there's no baby chicken in here. This is just the egg's house, or the baby chicken's house, if the baby chicken existed. But it doesn't. It's just like a couple cells that never really happened. So on the inside, it's just a bunch of protein. That's what the egg white is. It's pretty much all protein. And then the egg yolk has more of like the nutrients and things that help sustain the chicken while it grows inside the egg. But the egg white is kind of just like the cushion. Along with the shell, which just protects it from the outside world. So that is our short intro to what an egg is. And eggs can vary between different animals, like different eggs have different compositions and like different amounts of different like minerals and vitamins and stuff like that. And different amounts of proteins, different kinds of proteins. We're going to talk lots about proteins for the next couple weeks. So that's going to be our buzzword. But chicken eggs, what we normally use for baking, but also like some people eat duck eggs, some people eat quail eggs. There's lots of videos on the internet of people cooking with ostrich eggs. I'm not going to do that because I do not have an ostrich handy. But again, lots of different kinds of eggs. All different kind of animals use them. So, I'll wash my hands real quick because they're a little gross, but that's okay. So, what are we doing today? Well, besides just learning about eggs, for the next 3 weeks, in order to learn about eggs, every week we are going to be making a different egg-centric, see what I did there? Different egg-centric recipe. So this week we are going to be making a pretty easy dessert. It's got a little more finicky than maybe what we've done before, but if you manage to make sourdough bread, you're killing it, so you're gonna be fine. We're gonna make a little more of a finicky recipe. We are going to make meringues. So there's lots of different ways to make meringues. I have a recipe that I think is super great. I've tried, believe me, a lot of different meringue recipes, and this is my favorite So I'll be walking you through how to do it as well as posting that recipe later on. And every week, through our different recipes, we're going to be learning different things about chemistry, about science, through our marvelous eggs. So, what are we going to do today? Again, meringues. Throwing this away because I keep playing. So, what is a meringue? At its core, a meringue is just a mixture of sugar and eggs, egg white specifically, that has been beaten either by hand or with an electric mixer. Basically beat the absolute snot out of it so it's full of air, and it makes this kind of cool structure that when you bake in the oven for a long time, it's crunchy and sugary and delicious. It isn't like a gross eggy mess. People use them lots for decorations. You can also just eat them. If you've ever had a pavlova, it's like a big meringue. People put them on pies. People put them on lots of different things. And they're also the base for a lot of different baking recipes. So if you can make a meringue, you can kind of make everything. It's one of those finickier things, but believe me, I'm going to show you the easiest way how to do it that I found in my experience. I've been making meringues for at least 10 years. And it's pretty good, and they're tasty, and gluten-free. I come from a gluten-free household, so a lot of the rest, besides, realize we make bread, but the next couple weeks, we're going to be less on the gluten train, more on the glutenless train. So they're nice, they're easy, they don't have a lot of ingredients, and not having a lot of ingredients makes them cheap, which is also why I like them. So I'm going to stop flailing at you with my whisk, and we are going to get started. So, what do we have on the table cam today? Well, let me show you. We have a lot of things, so I'm going to be pointing stuff out. We have a whisk, shocking enough. I'm not just pointing with it. We have a bunch of eggs. We have measuring cups, salt, a pot. Start turning around. We've got the recipe book I'm going to be using. Believe me, I will cite it, and I will talk about the person who wrote it because she's dope. We have an electric mixer. This is probably the only finicky piece of equipment we are going to be using is an electric mixer. This is a KitchenAid hand mixer that my parents got when they got married in the 80s, I think. I wasn't there, so anyway. Works pretty darn well, considering it's older than me. Probably works harder than I do. They are super great for recipes like that because you don't have to be super jacked in order to whip a meringue for let's say 20 minutes. Super helpful. You can get pretty cheap ones for $20-30. They work just the same as expensive ones. This is what I use instead of something like a stand mixer, which are pretty fancy. Lots of professional bakers have one. I'm not a professional baker. I just make dorky videos for the internet. So I'm using a stand mixer from the 80s, or a hand mixer from the 80s. But if you have a stand mixer at home, go ahead and substitute. If you have a different kind of mixer, it's a-okay. If you don't, and you want to get a wicked arm workout, or occupied children you might have at home, use the whisk. You can also use a fork if you don't have a whisk. Works the same way. You just need some sort of pronged instrument. So that's my little skinny on the eggs. Because I'm going to be introducing a lot of stuff to you today, it's going to be a longer episode. So if you're like, I'm tired of listening to her talk, don't worry, it's all going to be posted. I'm also talking fast. Again, recipes will be posted. I'm going to have all the recipes for everything by the end of the day Sunday. That's my goal. So going back to what I was doing. What else do we have? We have, again, eggs. We've got a lot of sugar. I have a flat kind of icing spatula, which I'll show you how to use later. Not super necessary, but I have some extra stuff to kind of show you how we can troubleshoot some things. Liquid measuring cup, measuring spoons, lots of things you've seen before. I have piping bags as well as big Ziploc bags, which can accomplish the same thing. That's for later. And candy thermometer, just to show you what I'm doing, but not super necessary. And I've got food dye, always necessary because I like colors. You don't actually have to use it, but you have seen me. I like colors. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off my jewelry because I'm going to get gross in 2 seconds. So what we are going to do first is we are going to measure our eggs, sugar, and I'm consulting my recipe because, even scientists need recipes. That's what lab manuals are. First of all, cookbook we're using today because I did not make up this recipe. We're using Tessa Huff's meringue recipe. It's great. I'm going to link to the cookbook I got it from and write it out for you, but she is a very cool Canadian pastry chef. So, love repping Canadian women. So, we are going to add the egg whites, the sugar, and the salt to a bowl. I also have a bowl. This is my bowl. Before you get started making this, you want to make sure you have a bowl that will fit nicely on top of a saucepan. Why, pray tell, am I asking you to put a bowl on top of a saucepan? Is we need to cook the eggs just a little bit. Not enough that I'm like making scrambled eggs with sugar because that'd be barfy, but enough that it helps stabilize our meringues. So I have to find a bowl that will sit nicely on top of a pot like that. This is called a double boiler because we are cooking our eggs eventually. There'll be water in this pot. The water's going to be merrily simmering away, and I will have our ingredients on top that we can then whisk, and we are cooking them using indirect heat. Why are we using indirect heat? Well, if we had it on direct heat, it would cook really fast. We'd end up with scrambled egg, and it'd be gross. But if we cook it slowly with indirect heat, it just slowly cooks the eggs just enough that it helps break down the proteins inside them, because again, egg whites, all protein, enough that they will hold their meringue structure better. So it's going to be, I'm going to throw everything in the pot. I'll walk you through it. We're going to move. We're going to do our first day with stove cam. I'm excited. And then when I'm stirring on the stove, I will walk you through why meringues work. Sound good? Hope it sounds good because I'm not hearing any feedback, so we're just going for it. Apparently there's a little bit of water in my whisk because I keep flinging it everywhere. So shockingly enough, something I am using is not dry and I'm throwing it everywhere. So first thing we got to do is we need to measure out a 1/4 cup of eggs. There's a wasp on my station. Isn't that nice? Yes. So we need a 1/4 cup of eggs. Why, pray tell, am I measuring out a 1/4 cup of egg whites? Well, because eggs are not really uniform in size. And a lot of recipes will be like, oh, add 4 large eggs to a bowl and mix. Cool, that's great. What does that mean? Unless you have like an egg scale or you're very familiar with eggs or chickens, like I don't know what a large egg is compared to a small egg. I know when something's small and I know when something's large. Like I know that this is small, and this is large, but I don't know how to measure egg sizes. So that is why I like this recipe, because first of all, it just measures it in volume, which is much easier to measure. You just measure, just add eggs until you reach about a 1/4 cup, and you're good. I will also show you how to separate eggs today. Yeah, I told you, it's going to be a busy day. So we're going to do the table cam. First, I'm going to get a Tupperware. You will see why. Okay. Here I am. I've got my measuring cup. Stop that. I've got my measuring cup. I've got my Tupperware. And I've got my eggs. So what are we doing? We are going to separate, some eggs. So, how do we separate eggs? First of all, whenever you're cracking an egg, you want to crack it on a flat surface, not like the corner bowl. I know that's what a lot of people do, so you get a nice crack. But if you're going to get sick from eggs, it's actually from the egg shell, because that is what contacts, the outside world, namely the chicken. The inside is sterile for the most part because it was made inside a body. So the inside's fine, it's the outside. So you want to try, I know I'm touching this egg a lot, it's going to get cooked, so we're fine. But you want to avoid getting eggshell pieces inside the egg or like in your recipe. A, because you don't want to eat an eggshell, gross. And B, because it can get some germs in there and we don't really like germs. So, flat surface. You want to break it so that you kind of have your egg closest to being broke along like the median of the eggshell as you can. I normally collect my eggshells back in the container. What I'm going to do, this is a little slimy, so I use my hand to separate eggs. Some people have fancy tools. I do not have fancy tools. I have my hands. So then I take this egg yolk and I put it on the side. That was pretty much a 1/4 cup of egg whites, but I'm going to do a second egg. So again, we're a little slimy, flat surface. Sometimes you want to crack them a little way around the egg because it'll break nicer. Break the egg over your measuring cup, just like so, really slow, really gentle. Catch the egg yolk in the other half of the eggshell to the side. Scoop, whoop, egg white, and then I have a handful of egg yolk. Put the egg yolk in the other container. Oh, there's egg on my computer. Congratulations. We just separated eggs. I'm gonna wash my hands. So, for me, the eggs I was using, it was about 2 eggs, gave me a quarter cup of egg whites. But might be small, less, might be more, who knows, depends on your eggs. So, again, why we measure by volume. Why am I keeping these yolks in this container? What are we going to use egg yolks for? Tune in next week, because next week we are going to use up all the egg yolks that we get today. We're going to be making some other stuff. So take those egg yolks, put a lid on them, they'll keep in the fridge for the week, don't worry. And I write on the side of my container with a piece of tape how many egg yolks are in there, because if they break while they're in the fridge, because it's pretty loose membrane, if they break while they're in the fridge, that way I know and I don't have to like guesstimate. So that is done. I'm going to do that right now. First, take my quarter cup of egg whites, and I'm going to dump it in our bowl. Kind of looks like runny snot. In case you wanted that visual, that's what it looks like to me. So we're putting stuff away in my refrigerator. Putting stuff in the fridge. Such entertaining YouTube content. Otherwise, I was going to dump it on the floor. So, next up, we add the sugar. How much sugar, pray tell? I'm checking the recipe. Half a cup. So, add measuring cups. There we go. Got a measuring cup. Got a sugar. Very full. You want to use granulated white sugar for this. The difference being compared to brown sugar is brown sugar is less processed, which means it contains more molasses in it. That's what molasses comes from. It's just the crud separated from sugar. Still tastes good, but isn't as pure and can interfere with your meringues. Also, don't use powdered sugar because powdered sugar has some cornstarch in it and it'll totally gloop it up. Just white sugar. We're gonna measure half a cup. I could be more precise, but there's also a breeze literally blowing the sugar into the bowl. So, about a cup. I eyeball a lot of things if that wasn't already apparent. So, what have I got? I have a quarter cup of egg whites, half a cup of sugar, and I need a pinch of salt. So, I have my pinch. We're gonna be Salt Bae for a minute. I'm gonna pinch my fingers in there. You always want to pinch high. And pinch in there. Quite literally looking like Salt Bae. Excellent. So, now that we have all that set up, we're going to give it a very gentle whisking so everything's mixed. The sugar should somewhat dissolve in the egg white, but it's still going to be gritty. It's still going to be grainy. It's not going to be perfect. Okay. So that's semi-incorporated. Putting that off to the side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill up my pot about a third of the way full of water. This is an approximate amount because you just want to add enough water that it's not going to touch the bottom of the bowl, because remember we talked about indirect heat. This is indirect heat if it's not touching. If I had it the hot water touching the bottom of the bowl, A, it'd have a mess, and B, that would be direct heat. So, adding some water. Bottom of my pot is wet. Shocking, something I am using is still wet or somewhat dirty. Filling it up with water, filling it up with water. So fun, huh? We having fun yet? And now, my friends, we shall migrate to stove cam. I'm gonna take this and pile of books I prop up my laptop with. First, I'm gonna do this. So I dump it on the floor. And we're taking a little trip off the other counter, because I only have one camera. I'm gonna look at my chin for a minute. that worked better than I expected. Welcome to Stove Cam. So, got my pot on my stove. I am going to turn it on. I'm going to put it on medium. For stove, normally they measure in like 1 to 10, put it on 5. I'm going to pop this bad boy on top. Again, I'll show you how much water is in this pot. It's not a lot of water. You're going to pop this on top. And that is going to hang out for a minute because Rome wasn't built in a day. It's going to take a minute for the water to heat up. So, how do meringues work anyway? Good question, audience. We already I've said it several times, that egg yolks, egg whites, are all made of protein. So we talked a little bit about protein, and protein, I'm not touching it again. Protein are just building block molecules that are in all different kinds of organisms. So there's protein in us, there's proteins in eggs, proteins in different animals, different vegetables even, different plants, bacteria, fungi, whole 9 yards. Protozoa, yeast, all made of protein, and other molecules, but made of protein. And proteins are kind of like, I described them before, like beads on a necklace that kind of all get tangled up. Because proteins, one protein can be made up of thousands of different amino acids, and those are the building blocks that make up proteins. Amino acids are just the smaller molecular components of a protein. And they have kind of a generic setup. They kind of look like a star, like a 4-pointed star, maybe like a cross. Shush! Sorry, it's a touch screen, it gets really finicky. So 3 of the points on our star on each protein are normally the same. And those are the ones that are used to connect the proteins together, or connect the amino acids together. It's kind of like if we had hands. Each hand holds to the next protein, and so on, or next amino acid, so on and so forth, making the protein. But then they have a little bottom bit, which is normally called the R group. And there are a bunch of different kinds of R groups that an amino acid can have, and it gives them different traits. The key ones in what we are doing today, you irk me. The key ones today being something can be hydrophobic, something can be hydrophilic. I'm going to talk about that in a sec. Put on the water. Give that a stir. Turning it up slightly, just for the sake of time. So what is hydrophobic and hydrophilic? So, hydro means water. We're breaking down that word. Like hydropower, water power. Hydro, we know. And if we think of the word phobic, it normally means afraid of or avoid of. It's what we mean when we have a phobia, is we're afraid of something. So we can kind of think of something that is hydrophobic as something that is scared of water or water avoidant. And this means that the molecule that is hydrophobic doesn't want to interact with water, doesn't interact with water well. Kind of like how we talked about previously with fats. Fats are hydrophobic. Hydrophilic is the opposite. So we say hydro, we know water again, and philic means that we really like something. So it's water loving. So some molecules are hydrophilic and they work really well in water. It's why some substances dissolve well in water, meaning they're hydrophilic, and some don't, which means they're hydrophobic. And depending on what kind of amino acids make up a protein, you're starting to heat up, what kind of amino acids make up a protein can depend on whether the protein is hydrophobic or hydrophilic. And we talked about protein being like beads on a string, and this long string, and then it's like someone tangled it all up. Normally, if it interacts with water, it's got hydrophilic amino acids on the outside and hydrophobic ones on the inside so that it can interact well in water. Or it would have the opposite if it's not interacting in water. Egg proteins have both hydrophobic and hydrophilic ends. So, by mixing them, let's slowly start stirring this, by mixing them and incorporating lots of air, we start breaking up these twisted up proteins into long strings of amino acids. And besides being made up of proteins, egg whites are also made up of a lot of water. So when we break up these proteins into their amino acid components, they get exposed to this water and they actually try to avoid the water. And by doing that, they actually form and have their hydrophobic ends connect with air bubbles because those are what's protecting it from the water. So as we stir, we're both breaking up those protein chains into their protein kind of globs into their amino acid strings, and we're adding air. So the hydrophilic ends will stick to the water. The hydrophobic ends will wrap themselves around the air, so trapping the air, which is why we can whip eggs and they get foamy. They create this structure. Why does sugar work? They're actually not quite sure why sugar makes things like takes a meringue and it takes it from being kind of like blah, blah, kind of just whipped egg to being nice, thick, glossy meringue, which we'll see in a few minutes. And they think it's because it helps stabilize those structures even more, and it adds another molecule for the hydrophobic ends to glob onto. So it helps take those hydrophobic pockets of air and stabilize them, make them nice and sturdy. The other reason we add heat to this is because heat denatures or unravels these proteins even more into their amino acid strings. So it's kind of the trifecta, or trifecta? So this is why we're adding it to the heat, and we don't want to cook it. We just want to heat it up enough that the sugar can incorporate better, dissolves, and B, it starts unraveling these protein chains. So we are just starting to get some steam forming from our water to the bottom of our pot. It's starting to heat up, which is why I am continuously stirring. It doesn't need to be like, it doesn't need to be a vigorous stir, just a gentle back and forth. We want to make sure we're keeping our pot secure too, because we are using hot stuff. Make sure we're being safe. We can see already, or I can see, I'll show you so you can see, that our egg white sugar mixture is already starting to get more opaque, and that is because we've added more air pockets. So I'm going to keep stirring this on heat until all the sugar is dissolved and it feels hot. So this is where I say, careful, 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 because you will need to test to see how hot this egg white is. I have burned myself because I burn myself a lot. Because my sense of self-preservation is lacking. Don't do that. I recommend taking a spoon or a knife, some sort of utensil, dipping it in to your egg white and then touching that just gently, because that'll tell you the temperature without you actually putting your hand into a hot bowl. I'm about to put my hand in a hot bowl, so don't judge me. Put my hand in it. It's still pretty cold. And when you rub your fingers together when it's cold, it should feel grainy, kind of gritty. It feels kind of weird and smooth. That's from the egg white. The gritty is from the sugar. It's gonna be really sticky, so I'm gonna rinse my hand. So I know that it is not ready yet. So I'm just gonna keep it on heat. And just keep stirring. Again, low and slow is how you want to do this, which episode's gonna be a little longer because part of it is just me stirring. So besides sugar and eggs and salt just helps with flavor. We didn't add enough of it to add any kind of like chemical change. It's not gonna do anything like it did with bread when it helped stabilize the gluten. Just a little bit of salt makes everything taste better. A little bit of sugar also makes everything taste better. It's like butter. Lots of butter makes lots of things taste better. Other things we are gonna add to our meringue. We are going to add vanilla because it will give it sort of an aroma. It'll make it taste good. Sugar and egg normally taste good on its own, but a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of some takes it and just makes it extra good. But you can also use any kind of flavoring you want. Like if you're really into mint, add peppermint flavoring. You can use like lemon or orange or lime flavoring. If you want them to be citrusy, you can use almond flavoring. Whatever kind of flavoring you want, you can add to it. I know I've seen some places sell cotton candy flavoring now. Go back wild. I'm using vanilla. Other thing we are adding to our meringue, let me even get it, is we are adding something called cream tartar. Mine looks like this because I am using the same box that my grandmother bought. Oh, it says copyright 1996. It still works, don't worry. Because cream of tartar is just a fancy cooking word for tartaric acid. So what does this acid do, pray tell? This acid, again, helps denature the proteins, but it also helps stabilize, again, those hydrophobic, hydrophilic interactions that we're having between the water and the egg white, hydrophilic ends, and the air pockets and the hydrophobic ends. Because sometimes certain proteins contain sulfur molecules. Eggs do. That's why when they go off, they smell stinky. That's the sulfur getting released. But tartaric acid interacts with this egg sugar mixture and forms bonds between those sulfur molecules, which allows a more stable kind of matrix to trap the air. I'm a little excited. So I've been stirring again. It's getting even more opaque. I can feel a little heat coming off the pot, so I'm going to touch it again. It's definitely warmed up a little bit, but when I rub it between my fingers, still a little gritty. So what are we going to do? Just keep stirring, just keep stirring, just keep stirring, stirring, stirring. What do? We stir, stir. Sorry. I have to find some way to amuse myself while I'm stirring. Should only be a couple more minutes. So, what else are we doing today? Once we are finished this step, we are going to whip our meringues at high speed using our stand mixer, and then all we need to do is shape them and bake them. How are we going to bake them? This is another important part of meringues, is we are not going to put them at like 350 for 20 minutes like we do with cupcakes or something like that. Is we are going to cook these at a low temperature, slow. Meringues, their slogan should be low and slow, because again, if we do fast and hot, you will end up with gross scrambled egg. No matter how whipped it is, still scrambled egg. So what we are going to do is we're going to have our oven down low. We're going to put our meringues in, and we're going to leave them in for a couple hours. I have the exact stuff written down, and I'll have the exact stuff for you when I post the recipe. We want to cook these low and slow, and eventually we'll actually turn the oven off and leave these inside of them to dry them out. We're not trying to cook them. We're trying to get rid of all the moisture. We're trying to dry them out. Kind of like if we were making egg jerky, but instead of making gross egg jerky, because that's kind of like the grossest thing I've ever heard, we were making tasty sugar egg jerky, which also sounds bad. But it's what we're making, so go with it. Just, if you make meringues all the time, like I do, you end up with one good stirring shoulder. Just stir forever. That was my job when I worked in the kitchen. I was waitressing, but I just stir when the cook needed me to, because I do it forever. So, if your water starts having lots of steam come out the side, this is where we want to be careful, because this bowl is going to be hot. So you might want to turn it down just a little bit, especially, like I can hear some bubbling, so I turned my stove down. Let us check again on the grittiness. Oh, it's hot, and it's no longer gritty. Oh, so what are we going to do? Oh, what are we doing now? Well, first of all, turning this off and taking it off the heat. Next, grab my oven mitts out. Why oven mitts? Because the bowl is hot. Believe me, I learned that the first time. It's going to also be wet on the bottom, so you want to wear oven mitts even if you're like, oh, it's not that hot. Protect from steam burns. Putting that on the thing, or on my stove. Next step, we are going back to the island. Whoop. Get a close-up look at the Science Venture logo. Da-da-da! And we have left stove can. Seamless transition. 10 out of 10. Where's my Oscar? I'm gonna plug my computer back in so it doesn't die while I'm filming. I almost filmed this with a GoPro strapped to my head today because it was suggested by my dad. But I decided I didn't want to look like a super dork, so we're not going to do that. Maybe in the future I will get the GoPro set up, but not today. So, let's get our eggs. Okay, oven mitts on. I just domed myself in the head. Oven mitts on. Bowl over here. Oven mitts off. We need our cream of tartar. Turn the light off. So, next step. So, next step. is to add our cream of tartar to our, oh no. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna whip the snot out of this. So you could do this by hand, just by whipping forever. That's not what we're gonna do because you would hate me for that, because you would have to stare at me forever or I'd have no viewers. So we are going to use our hand mixer. But again, use any method you prefer. I like the hand mixer, it gives me more control than a stand mixer. Also, I don't have the counter space. Also, I'm cheap. So, hand mixer from 1980, we shall use. If I can ever untangle the plug. Are we having fun yet? Are we having fun watching me make meringues? Okay. So, egg cam on, or desk cam on. Mixer's plugged in, hands away from mixture, holding the bowl gently. Put it on low. And then slowly, we're going to ramp up the speed so I don't ruin the Simon Hunter shirt with egg white, because that's gross and sticky. And Wendy would never forget. Ramping up our speed. We are on max speed, and this is what we want to be. So I'm going to stop and start just so you can see things. So you can see already it's starting to get kind of shiny because we are incorporating lots of air. We are going to want to whip this until we reach stiff peaks. I will show you what it looks like when we reach soft peaks, and I will show you what it looks like when we reach stiff peaks. For the actual video, I might just shorten this part, fast forward it. But for right now, we're doing this live. So either hang out for the next 5 minutes or grab a cup of coffee, then come back. So whip it. Whip it real good. Whip it. Probably should be holding the bowl. Setting a good example. Setting a good example. So I'm just checking to see where we're at. And we're slowly starting to get to soft peaks. So if I lift it, we can see, get some trails, and it's starting to leave prints in our bowl. That means we're right on track. Might be wondering why I'm moving the bowl around. It is because I want to mix this until the bowl goes back to room temperature. It's maybe the same temperature as my hand. Before I add our cream of tartar and our vanilla. So once we have the cream of tartar, things are gonna whip, but we want it to be cooled down first. It's kind of hard to make it when it's hot because the hotter it is, the more runny it is. Remember last week when we talked about how temperature affects viscosity and density? Works the same things with our eggs. So we want it to be a little cooler, it's a little more solid. So we're going to whip it again. So we are definitely starting to cool down, which is good because I'm really hot. One thing I am going to do. We can see we're starting to get soft peaks. See that? Got some little peakiness. Excellent. And just rubbed egg on my pants. Awesome job, Brianna. I'm going to take a spatula and just wipe down the sides of our bowl so that it's easy. We're making sure we're actually mixing it. Wipe it on the old blades of the stand mixer. Wrap it up in the egg carton. Like that. And we keep stirring. Until the bowl is cool. Almost there, gang. We can see we're already getting, oh baby, we're getting those soft peaks. Oh my. Exciting. And our bowl is almost down to room temperature now, which is amazing. Actually, I'm gonna add cream tartar. First thing I'm gonna do is rinse my hands again, because it's sticky. Always sticky. Making meringues will never not be sticky. So, what are we gonna add now? We are gonna add some vanilla. I eyeball my vanilla because I just pour a little bit. Sometimes I just pour a capful. It means we don't dirty a spoon, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of vanilla. Just a little pour, probably about a quarter of a teaspoon, half a teaspoon, just like that. You can use imitation or regular. You can't taste the difference. I've yet to meet someone who can. Mine is currently a mix of imitation and regular vanilla, natural, whatever you want to call it, to make it last longer. I'm going to take an eighth of a teaspoon. This is a quarter teaspoon. We are going to take half of a quarter teaspoon to the eighth of a teaspoon. I'm using your grandmother's very old cream of tartar. It's all on the bottom. We're going to use about that much, just half of a quarter of a teaspoon. Half of a quarter of a teaspoon, which is an eighth of a teaspoon. Sprinkle that in our bowl like so. And let's whip it, and we'll see how much it whips up, because it's gonna be amazing. Look at that. We already got more peak action. I'm gonna scrape down the sides. Always scrape down the sides. If you learn anything from me during kitchen chemistry, is always scrape the sides of your bowl. Maybe you'll learn nothing about science, but you will remember, always scrape down the sides of your bowl. Always, always, always. Need that printed on my science teacher shirt. Maybe there'll be a kitchen chemistry shirt one day. Soft peaks. Need them a little stiff. We are almost there. We are like just about there. We can see, we look real close. And I pull it up. Look at that. Look at that majesty. We get little baby peaks. So stiff peaks are normally when if I do like straight up and down. Pew! Those mountains would stay up. We're almost there. Bear with me. We're in the home stretch. Oh, so close. That is just about what I mean when I say stiff peaks. Yeah! So, I talk a lot about my grandma when I make meringues. Why, pray tell, is because many, many moons ago, when I was but a wee sprout, she taught me how to make meringues. So, we are going to we can follow the book to its heart's content. We can look for soft peaks, or hard peaks, medium peaks, glossiness, whatever. But I prefer to use my grandmother's method, which we call the blizzard method, because what you want to do is you want to flip it upside down. Did it come out of the bowl? No? That means your meringue is done. Believe me, the first time I made a meringue, she's like, oh, let me check if it's ready. It's like, what? But it really works. If your meringue can stay in the bowl, when you flip it upside down, it still hasn't moved. Look at it. It should hang in there. Means it's done. So, I'm going to unplug my stand mixer, but not my computer. There we go. Take these bad boys, which are delicious. But I'm going to put them in my sink because I probably shouldn't eat while filming. Put this inside. We are in the fun part. Well, I've been having fun the whole time. This is the most fun part. Is we are going to decorate these bad boys. So, lots of the time when you see people doing like pastry work, they have pastry bags and special tips and all kinds of that. I do have those. I do use them sometimes because they're really good for icing. If I'm just making meringues, I use what I call the cheap pastry bag is I use a Ziploc. So I'll show you how to do it. First, we're going to need a baking sheet. Want to line it with parchment paper or silk mat, just like we've done previously. Just like we did with our bread. Lining our silk mat. Third thing we need, besides pastry bag, we also need a pair of scissors and a cup. Why a cup, you wonder? You will see in a moment. And our scissors. So, there's a couple different ways to decorate your meringues, because obviously we're going to decorate them, have you met me? A couple different ways to do this. You could either add food coloring straight to your mix. You could put sprinkles on them before you bake them. Or you could add a rainbow stripe, which is what we're going to do. So first thing you want to do, put your hand in our plastic bag, make sure it's open. You find a corner with your finger. You can take that finger with the corner, put it in the bottom of your cup. Then we're going to fold the sides over so it's open. Next, what you're going to do is you are going to get your food coloring and some spoons. Got some spoons. A couple little babies. And in this case, butter knives, because I haven't unloaded my dishwasher. So, what you're going to do is you're going to pick your colors you want to use for your meringues. And these colors are going to go on the outside, kind of like stripes. They look very cool. I'm going to use orange, because I don't use my orange food dye a lot, and I think it is an undervalued color. I'm going to I use food gel, but you can also use food dye. Just dip it in. A good amount on your little knife there. We shall be artists today. I feel like Bob Ross. Not so much that it's going to taste bad. Then you're going to take it, go to near the bottom of your tube, and you're going to paint a line with your food dye on the inside of your cup. You might need to do a little bit more, just a little bit of love. Always can use more love. And continue to paint that line on the inside. Now, they are not all going to be perfectly even, but that is the nature with using a Ziploc bag and a butter knife and food dye. It's not an exact science. You may also dye your hands. I often do that while doing this. Next color, we are going to use blue, because science venture, obviously. Use some sky blue because it's pretty. Ooh, the lid popped off. Gross. See, my hands are going to be dyed blue in about 2 seconds. Yep, there it goes. I'm a smurf. Again, take our little knife, a little knifey knife, poke at our food gel or our food dye, get some on the end, twist so that you're about, turn it about 120 degrees. You can kind of want to divide it into thirds and paint another line on with your new food gel color. Again, always more love, always more love. And again, they're gonna look a little abstract, but just bear with me. They do look pretty when you're done. I'll post a picture, obviously, on our Instagram when we're done, because everyone needs to see the majesty that is Science Venture meringues. Okay. Third done. Fourth color. Purple? Yeah. Really, I can't put on a lid. I have a university degree and I can't put on a lid. There we go. Purple, because I like purple. Take your third knife, do it again. Dip in your love. It's a lot of purple, but that's okay. Turn 120 degrees and streak your line. It is going to be wrinkly in your bag, so again, it's not going to be like perfect stripes. You'd need a pastry bag for that. But again, they're expensive and unnecessary. But don't tell the pastry chefs I said that. And if you're pastry chef going, listening to me talk, I'm sincerely sorry. If you're a pastry chef, why are you watching me cook? So next thing we're gonna do is you're gonna grab, should have kept the spatula, but I didn't. That's okay. I have like 18 of them. Gonna take, this is where I have it in our cup, and we're going to scoop our meringue into this bag. We're gonna scoop into our bag. Scoopity-doo into the bag. I made it slightly more runnier also because it's hot in my house. So it is going to drip down the side of the pastry bag, but that is okay. They might not be perfect peaks, but that's fine because it's all for the sake of science and fun. And just keep scooping it either until you run out of meringue or you fill up the bag. Whatever comes first. You can always refill the bag afterwards if you make a big batch because you could very easily double this recipe. Almost done. Scrape in the bowl, just like Brianna said to. Okay, just about done. There we go. Bowl is scraped. Then, this is the easy part. You pick it up, you zip it shut. I got some meringue on it. That's okay. Try to squish all the air out. Zip it fully shut. Get meringue all over your hands. Rinse them again for the upkeep side. Realize that your hands are going to be dyed different colors for the rest of the week. And then kind of twist your bag, bunch it up, and voila! Whoops. Voila, you're a pastry chef. Look at that. You have a perfect little bag of meringue. So then we're going to take our scissors and we're going to cut off the end. Don't need to cut off that much. And look, suddenly you made a pastry bag. And now we get to pipe them. So to pipe, you just put them and up. Beautiful. Up. Up. They kind of look like toothpaste. Up. 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 And we're just going to fill up our whole pan. Up. 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 Just gentle pressure from the top. Push out your meringues. And you can see they're beautiful and they're stripy. You can see your meringues glossy. It's a little flat, but again, there's only so much we can do because it's so hot right now. I don't know where everyone is who's watching this, but in Victoria, it's pretty toasty in the house right now. Moving our spoons. Up. 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 Almost done. Up. Running out of place. Oop, that one was kind of yucky. Some of them will be ugly. All of them will taste good. And they don't spread out that much while baking, so you can use up all of the space you have. And it is okay if they're different sizes. That means you have some for desserts and some to snack on. The more, the merrier. Okay, I have a little bit left in the bag, but there we have it. We have our little multicolored meringue BBs on our pan. So at this point, I would pop them in the oven at 215 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius, and they would hang out in the oven for 30 to 60 minutes until, depending on the size of the meringues, until they're dry to the touch. Then you will turn off your oven and leave them until the oven fully cools, at which point you should have crispy, little delicious meringue babies that you can gobble up by yourself, share with friends while social distancing, use to decorate a cake, gobble up like the Cookie Monster all in one go. I'm not going to judge you. Whatever fruits your loops, you've made meringues. Congrats! Thank you for sticking around with me today. I will post pictures of what these bad boys look like once they're baked. But thank you for sticking around for a very long episode of Kitchen Chemistry. I promise next week will be shorter. Thank you for sticking around. Remember, we are going to keep on our egg theme. Don't throw out those egg yolks. Brandon says no. Have a lovely week. Enjoy the hot weather. And as always, you're awesome. Thank you so much. I will see you next Wednesday. Bye.